The first child died at 2, the second died at 3, the third never reached her first birthday. By the time the fourth was buried, the elders no longer believed they were burying different children. The names on the graves were different. The faces were different. The births were spaced years apart. But in the compound, in the village, in the quiet conversations that happened after dark, everyone said the same thing. It is the same child. It keeps coming back. They say there is a spirit that has chosen her family, a spirit that is born as her child, lives for a season and then returns to wherever it came from, only to come back again. Different face, same soul, same destruction. The Igbo people of southeastern Nigeria have a name for this spirit. They call it Ogbanje. And tonight we go inside the story that Chinua Achebe told the world. The story that has haunted Igbo families for centuries. The story that science has tried to explain and failed to fully extinguish. The child who kept coming back. In the Igbo language, the word Ogbanje translates roughly as children who come and go. But that translation does not carry the weight of what the Igbo people actually believed. An Ogbanje is not simply a child who dies young. It is not simply a tragedy. According to Igbo cosmology, an Ogbanje is a spirit, a deliberate knowing choosing spirit that enters the world through a mother's womb not to live but to torment. Before birth, according to oral tradition, these spirits exist in a realm between the living and the dead, and there they make a pact with companions, with other spirits, with fate itself. They agree on a lifespan, a date, a plan. They will enter the world. They will allow their families to love them. They will allow hope to grow. And then, at the appointed time, they will leave, and then return, and do it again. Oral tradition holds that unborn Ogbanje spirits form secret leagues and enter pacts with fate. The child's lifespan is fixed by a buried charm, and unless this charm is found and destroyed, the child will die according to plan. Ogbanje children were believed to exhibit certain traits: beauty, charm, rebelliousness, or a sense of knowing far beyond their age. Some communities claim these children confess their true nature during illness or moments of distress. They were too perceptive, too still, too wise for their years. They would sometimes speak of things they should not know, places they had never been, people who had died before they were born, and the families who had lost child after child after child. They recognized the signs. They had seen this before, different face, same eyes. The Igbo believed that an Ogbanje's power came from a single source, a physical object, hidden somewhere in or near the home, buried in the earth, concealed before birth, or during the earliest days of the child's life, in a place only the spirit knew. This object was called the Iyi-uwa. The Iyi-uwa is a physical object that binds the Ogbanje to the mortal world, usually a small stone, bead, or charm hidden by the spirit child. Discovering and destroying this object is believed to break the cycle, allowing the child to live a normal life. Think about what that means. Somewhere in the compound, buried in the ground, hidden in the root of a tree, concealed in the thatch of a roof, there is a small object, and as long as it exists, the child cannot stay, cannot live beyond the date the spirits agreed upon before it was born. The discovery and ritual destruction of the Iyi-uwa is central to traditional efforts to settle an Ogbanje. Dibias use oracles or trance states to pinpoint its location, often near the child's birthplace or a symbolic site. The ritual to find it was not simple. It required a dibia, a traditional healer and spiritual diviner, who would enter a trance state and communicate with the spirit world. Ask the Ogbanje itself where the object was hidden. Negotiate, demand. Sometimes the child would lead the dibia to it in a half-trance state of their own, walking to a spot they had never consciously visited, pointing at the ground. And when the earth was parted, there it was, a small stone, a cowrie shell, a piece of metal. something ordinary that should have meant nothing. The Iyi-uwa must be found and destroyed in order for the Ogbanje to rest and stop haunting the mother. To find the object, dibias question the spirit and perform rituals to force it to reveal where the Iyi-uwa is located. Once destroyed, the cord was cut, the pact was broken. The spirit, according to tradition, could no longer return on schedule, could no longer be called back by its companions in the spirit world. The child, if it had survived long enough, could finally simply be a child. In Chinua Achebe's Things Fall Apart, the most famous literary treatment of this belief, a girl named Ezinma is identified as an Ogbanje. The medicine man digs up the Iyi-uwa of Ekwefi's daughter Ezinma, the stone linking her to the spirit world, so that she would never become sick again. And indeed, Ezinma survives to adulthood, the only one of Ekwefi's children to do so. The community does not celebrate this as superstition defeated. They celebrate it as a battle won. But what happened when the child died before the Iyi-uwa could be found? What happened when there was no time for the ritual? When the child was taken in the night or in the fever or in the early hours before anyone could reach the dibia? Then the family had to prepare for its return, because it would return. They were certain of it. To protect surviving children, families might use tribal markings. In southern Nigeria, women would scar or mark an Ogbanje child's body so the spirit's unseen companions could not recognize and reclaim it. Marking the child was believed to confuse its spirit mates. A small cut on the ear, a mark on the cheek, an incision on the heel, not as punishment, not as cruelty, as identification, as a message written in the only language the spirit world could read. If you come back, we will know you, and the belief was sometimes confirmed. A child born into the same family months or years later, bearing a birthmark or scar in exactly the same location as the mark on the dead child's body. Some Ogbanje were said to return bearing the physical scars of mutilation from their previous life. Birthmarks, the first words a child said, and behavior similarities all helped families identify a returning spirit. What do you do with that? What does a mother do when she looks at her newborn child, a child she has never seen before, and recognizes the shape of a scar? Does she love it? Does she fear it? Does she do both at the same time, every day of its life? That is the particular cruelty of Ogbanje. It does not come for strangers. It comes for the people who will love it most. The Igbo were not alone in this belief. Across the Niger, among the Yoruba people of western Nigeria, the same spirit exists under a different name, Abiku, born to die. The Yoruba and Igbo arrived at this belief independently. Different languages, different traditions, different rituals, but the same terrible recognition that some children do not come to stay, two nations, side by side, both building entire spiritual frameworks around the same grief. And this matters, because when two cultures who did not share a text, did not share a language, did not share ceremonies, arrive at the same story, it forces a question. Were they both imagining things, or were they both describing something real? In the late 20th century, researchers began studying the Ogbanje phenomenon with medical tools rather than spiritual ones. What some of them found was unexpected. Studies in Nigeria suggested that a significant number of children identified as malevolent Ogbanje showed symptoms consistent with sickle cell disease, a genetic condition that causes chronic pain, repeated illness, and without modern intervention, early death. A condition that in a family where both parents carry the gene can affect child after child after child. Some researchers concluded this explained everything, that the Ogbanje belief was simply a pre-scientific framework for a genetic reality the Igbo had no other language to describe. But other scholars pushed back. They noted that not all children identified as Ogbanje had sickle cell disease, that the belief persisted in families where the medical explanation did not apply, that the rituals sometimes appeared to work in ways that a purely biological explanation could not account for. The science does not close the question, it only adds another layer to it. Think about what the Igbo saw before they had genetics, before they understood inheritance and recessive genes. They saw a family, a child, beautiful and bright, who kept getting sick in ways that could not be explained, who died young, and then, months later, years later, another child born into the same family, the same pattern, the same terrible end. What else would you conclude? The Ogbanje is not merely a tale of sorrow, but a profound metaphysical response to uncertainty. Whether or not science has the full answer, the Igbo had something science has never been able to offer: a ritual, a stone to find, something to destroy, a way to fight back. You might think that with the science explained, with sickle cell disease understood and now treatable, the belief in Ogbanje would have faded. It has not entirely. A study of mothers in Ebonyi State, Nigeria, found that 64.8% still believed in Ogbanje. The commonest presentation they described was frequent illness. Only 3.3% said they would seek orthodox medical care for a child they believed to be Ogbanje. 64.8%. In a modern hospital study, in the 21st century, not because these are uneducated people, not because they have not encountered modern medicine, but because the belief runs deeper than knowledge, because grief runs deeper than explanation, because when you have buried 4 children, a diagnosis does not necessarily feel more comforting than a ritual. At least the ritual gives you something to destroy. And here is what makes Ogbanje unlike any other mythology in our series. Most legends are stories about creatures that might exist. Mami Wata, the sirens, Baba Yaga. You encounter them, or you don't. Ogbanje is different. The Igbo believe that everyone is Ogbanje, that everyone reincarnates. The malevolent Ogbanje are simply the ones who return too quickly, too destructively, too deliberately, which means, according to this belief, every person reading this, watching this, has lived before, has made choices before birth that they carry without knowing, has a spirit that will not stop until it has finished what it came here to do. The only question is whether your cycle is a gentle one or not. Somewhere tonight, a mother is holding a child who has survived every illness, every fever, every prediction. The child is healthy. The child is laughing. The child does not know what it cost to keep them here. But when that child laughs, sometimes the mother still wonders, not because she believes in spirits, but because grief leaves fingerprints on the mind that no amount of time fully removes. This is Moonlight Whispers. We find the stories the world buried, and we bring them back to the light.